are ready to kick off with today's event. My name is Valerie Maybird. I am authorized representative of the Business Development Fund. I'm extremely glad to welcome all of you here. I'm glad to welcome the viewers who are watching our live stream. Our today's event is dedicated to the presentation of the annual report by the BDF for 2020. This is our first public presentation, and during this presentation, together with the Minister of Finance, we would like to demonstrate those achievements that the fund managed to reach to support small and medium enterprises in Ukraine. Why does that matter for us? Because in the first place, 2020 was important for the Business Development Fund. You know that in February 2020, thanks to the President's initiatives and the government's initiative, back then, the German-Ukrainian Fund, currently BDF, was chosen as the platform for the implementation of the State 579 program. From then on, we became the agent of the government. We started to not only operate money from the international financial institutions, but also operating funds from the budget, money of the taxpayers. And it is very important for us to be public, transparent, and accountable to small and medium enterprises in Ukraine so that they can see how real, tangible, available state support is. And we will demonstrate it today while presenting our report. Also, we're organizing this public presentation because in 2020, which was a difficult year for everybody, for everyone globally, for Ukraine, for economically developed countries, for BDF as well. But at the same time, it also allowed us to yield results, to be extremely efficient, because we transformed from the German-Ukrainian Fund to the BDF, became the agent of the government, and now you can see that on the slide. This scenario was supposed to be implemented back in 1996, when with the German government support, thanks to the German bank KfW, the grant was issued to Ukraine of 20 million German marks, and that was the scenario that first the grant is provided. On the second stage, it will be transformed into the German-Ukrainian Fund, thanks to the assistance of the Minister of Finance and the National Bank of Ukraine. And at the final stage, the German-Ukrainian Fund is supposed to start working for the sake of the government, of the small and medium business, and turn into a fully fledged financial institution to support SMEs in Ukraine. This did happen in 2020. We're extremely glad that it did occur. And if previously in German-Ukrainian Fund we had three founders, KfW German Bank, the National Bank of Ukraine, and the government in Ukraine represented by the Minister of Finance, now we have one participant, the Ministry of Finance of Ukraine. This is exactly why we are holding our presentation today here at the Ministry of Finance directly. And I'm extremely glad to give the floor for welcome and remarks to Deputy Minister of Finance of Ukraine for European Integration, head of the board of the BDF, Yuri Draganchuk. Over to you. Welcome, everyone. In fact, I'm really glad to be here at the presentation of the results of the fund's activities for the last year, for 2020, because we all understand that it was not easy, not only for Ukraine, but for all countries globally. There was the pandemic, corona crisis, and all states globally were faced with the challenge. How do we support business? How do we support entrepreneurs? Given such complicated conditions, given lockdown that was also imposed in Ukraine, and of course, small and medium enterprises were hit the hardest in our country as well as elsewhere. Last year, not only in Ukraine, but elsewhere, say in Europe, in the US, and other countries, was dedicated to creating institutions which would direct funds, cheap resource to assist business. In Ukraine, Business Development Fund was this institution, and I believe that it managed to cope with the task. That is why I'm glad that now we're gonna see the results. The main areas of work of the fund basically were two programs. The first one, Finance East, which our partners are going to tell you more about, and the second one is exactly 579 program, which allowed to provide finance for existing loans, also issue new loans on good conditions with benefits. In general, now on the slide you will see these details, and I believe that the fund will provide you with more details, of course. But the overall financial support amounted to almost 50 million hryvnia, which is a huge amount. We're extremely grateful to our partners for their support. We believe that the funds team and the Minister of Finance team managed to cope with the task, and I'm extremely grateful to the team of the Minister of Finance that managed to implement the President's and the government's plan at the level of legal acts and regulations, as well as to the team of the Business Development Fund, which turned this to life and has been telling us about what are the gaps, the bottlenecks, what needs to be changed, what needs to be added, how can we simplify the life of small and medium entrepreneurs in Ukraine so that it would be easier for them to access this funding. There are 31 banks that participate in the program, so the competition is quite high, and everybody is interested in the program. This 31 bank is pretty much accounts for 98% of the market that issues loans and credits to small and medium enterprises. So the coverage is the whole country, and all those willing can access and use this program. The resource was quite high. Of course, if you compare us to more developed countries, probably it's not sufficient in comparable terms. But I believe given the budget and the economic situation in this context in Ukraine, we have managed to cope with the task quite well and try to help everyone. What do we see next? We're not gonna stop. We believe that the fund should be working more on two directions. The first one is energy efficiency projects. And again, my colleagues will elaborate on that. And the second direction is also introducing other international partners to join the fund. Now, there is active interaction with the representatives of the Japan agency, GICA. The German KfW is already partaking in the program. We're thinking about various instruments and tools to make the resource cheaper for Ukrainian consumers. We're thinking about how can we hedge the risks and, currency risks. And we are negotiating with our partners so that they can also take the part of this risk on their shoulders, so that we can provide credits with lower interest rate, and in general decrease the interest rate all across the banking system, so that in the future we can reach our goal, so that the banking sector is competitive, so that the state can step away from supporting, because now we are ending with the corona crisis, so we hope that we will see that what we have done yields results. Of course, probably there are people who are not happy, say that there is not enough money. But again, I'd like to repeat that given the resources that are available to us, team did a great job. That is why I'd like to thank everybody. And now, over to the representative of the BDF. Slightly later. I would like to mention one thing. That we're ready. We're listening to the business closely. If you are not happy with anything else, if there are any other bottlenecks in accessing our product, please feel free, do not hesitate. Contact the fund, and we will be looking for the opportunities and ways to simplify the procedure as much as possible and provide you with additional financial resource. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Yuri. Now, on behalf of the BDF, I would like to also confirm and second what you have just said. Communication both with the Minister of Finance and with the government during the most dire times when the pandemic broke out in the beginning of 2020 was really phenomenal. we have managed to quite rapidly to improve the program so that it is fully compliant with the challenges of the time. And it's true that our first partner was Minister of Finance that was processing it all, submitting suggestions to the government so that those are approved. So this joint work, this cooperation has led to the result that we see today. Quite good in my opinion, at least for the first year. And next we're going to keep improving, getting better, and revamping our program, because we see that now we have less and fewer restrictions, so now we can again switch to the development and restoration policies. In the beginning I have mentioned that we want to demonstrate transparency, we want to speak publicly and openly, because we do that for the citizens and entrepreneurs of Ukraine, as well as for our international partners who also support Ukraine thanks to their taxpayers. And in February last year, we were closing one of the components of our project together with the German government, which the European Union also participates in, that was providing hedging for the currency risks. And back then the deputy head of the EU delegation said that the highest result that we have demonstrated is that we have provided BDF with efficient use of the taxpayers' money. So we are trying to keep it at the same level, and we are very proud of having such a reputation. Together with the EU, we have started cooperation in 2017. Again, thanks to our partner, the German Development Bank, KfW, which has engaged financial support of 5 million euro for hedging currency risks. And thanks to these funds, we have managed to make a long-term program in the national currency. In 2017, that was, I would say, more of an exception, because not that much has passed since the crisis of 2014 and 2015. That is why national currency mattered a lot. Additionally, in 2019, the end of 2019, we again became the agent of the European Union via KfW for implementation, I believe, of a very important program to support entrepreneurs in the east of Ukraine, restoring business activities, providing funding in Donetsk and Luhansk oblasts that are government-controlled areas of Ukraine. In the framework of this program, thanks to the funding of the European Union, the Business Development Fund is providing compensation of the half of the investment projects for SMEs, and this compensation, on the one hand, incentivizes entrepreneurs go back to proper economic activities, and for our financial partners, who today are Oshad Bank, Ukrgas Bank, and TP Leasing, is kind of a guarantee that shall anything happen with the enterprise, or we understand that this is a zone of an armed conflict, the risks are higher. So this compensation at the same time also serves as the guarantee of paying half of the leasing amount or the credit. That is why it is a pleasure to have such a powerful partner as the European Union. And I'm really glad now to give the floor to the Sector Manager for Agriculture, Land, Forestry, Fisheries and SPS, Hal Christian. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Valerie, for organizing this event. Dear Deputy Minister, ladies and gentlemen, first I wanted to apologize for, I hope everybody hears me, to apologize for the absence of the head of delegation or the head of cooperation, but they have a very busy week, and basically they had already other commitments today. Hence I represent the European Union delegation for this event, and I wanted to thank the Ministry of Finance and the Business Development Fund for providing me basically the opportunity of these remarks, notably on the cooperation that we have and fruitful cooperation that we have with the Business Development Fund within the frame of the European Union for Business initiative. As Valerie mentioned, this cooperation builds on a broad track records of numerous programs in the past, including the last one that ended in 2018 2019 that was providing basically support to SME investments in local currency, and that has that was implemented in collaboration with the government of Germany and laid the basis, the foundation for the very successful state program on allocable loans, 5, 7, 9%, of which you are all aware of. However, as mentioned also by Valerie today, what I wanted to focus on is merely our latest collaboration with the Business Development Fund, which is basically the Finance East project that takes place within the frame of our EU support program for the east of Ukraine. The conflict in the East has had tremendous social, economic, psychological effects on local communities, and the EU, along with other donors, have supported the region as of 2015 with early recovery intervention. However, as of 2017, the European Union had believed that it was time to change a little bit the type of intervention and to embark onto an assistance that would allow the government-controlled areas of both Donetsk and Luhansk Oblast to embark upon a more sustainable economic and social recovery. Hence, the development of this program that dates back from 2017 and that was worth initially 50 million euros, and now it expanded to 75 million euros in total. This program is basically based on 4 different components. The first one is governance and decentralization. This is something where the European Union and several other member states are leading our assistance in Ukraine, as you may know, and this also, of course, includes the eastern region. The second component is social cohesion and community security. Third component is sector reforms, notably in the health sector. And the fourth, which is of our interest today, was aiming at economic recovery and the development of micro, small and medium enterprise in the eastern region. And the European Union in 2017 was having the vision of providing accessible and flexible access to MSMEs in this region within the frame of the Finance East and through our partnership with the Business Development Fund. This access has been turned concretely through 2 different funds, which were matching grant funds. That means it's based on the provision of grants by the European Union that are blended basically to loans in order to allow reducing basically the risks for the banks, and in this case also a leasing company, OTP Leasing, as you mentioned it in your introduction. So a first grant scheme was established of 4 million euros, meant at small investments, notably in seasonal trade finance, small equipment and material. And in addition to that, we've also provisioned 8.1 million euros. These are additional funding for the establishment of a second matching grant scheme that was basically established through KfW, the German Business Development Bank, and the Business Development Fund. And this fund allowed basically through our partnering bank, Ukrgas Bank and Oshad Bank, as well as OTP Leasing, for SMEs in the region to benefit from grant funds that they will not have to reimburse to the European Union, hence, in order basically that would cover basically 50% of the repayment of their loan or their leasing contract, with the ultimate goal for the European Union to allow for these banks to increase the confidence they can have in micro, small and medium enterprise in this region, as you mentioned, very close to the front line, to the contact line, and a region where the risks are ranked higher. So to increase the confidence, and I hope that this confidence is going to be harvested in the coming month, and thereby we see basically a sustainable access to finance, to credit by the MSMEs. In total, I believe almost 120 MSMEs have benefited from this support, which is over a period of 1 year only, which shows basically that the need for investments in the region, as everywhere in Ukraine, but especially in this region, is very high. And that's why we hope that this scheme has been able to seed something that will remain sustainable, and that the commitment of these two banks and the leasing company OTP Leasing is going to remain sustainable for the coming months and years. In total, I think the amount of investments is of more than 600 million hryvnia for an area where from 2014 to 2019 very few banking transactions were operated. And only by saying this is already very successful. Of course, this is just a kind of, I don't like the word pilot, but I think it's a kind of approach phase in order to resume basically leasing and lending operations in the region. I'm sure you're going to get into more details than I do here, but I wanted also to emphasize exactly what you've mentioned before, what was said during this event when we closed the SME support project. I think for the European Union, we believe that the Business Development Fund in Ukraine is a leader, financial innovator in Ukraine. And we really think that the approach that is taken is something that the European Union is going to further support. Hence, we are looking forwards future and deepening of our collaboration with the Business Development Fund, and I hope that this is going to be concretely achieved in the coming years as well. Thank you again for your attention. I will leave it now to the Business Development Fund to further present us basically the results of their support throughout 2020. And I wish you fruitful discussions. Thank you very much again for your kind attention.
If I may, using the opportunity, I'd like to make a comment. Thank you so much for highly evaluating the activities of the fund. You have said that this is a leader in the development, and in fact, we are happy because of the progress that was achieved by the fund. So using this opportunity, you see that fund is sustainable, that it works, that there are no non-performing loans. So could you probably increase the financial support for the fund so that we can get more support from the EU, and on our side we will come up with how can we decrease the pressure on the budget. I would like to also say, of course, thank you so much for highly evaluating our work. Actually, we even rely more on the hedge, and we hope that it's going to be also operating in the upcoming credit and loan program. So we look forward to your support. I would like to also thank Mr. Hell for such high evaluation and assessment of the work of the fund. I didn't want to say everything that Stefan Schönding mentioned when he was making a speech when the project was closed. But yes, now the fund is using financial innovations. Some innovations are used for the first time in Ukraine. For example, Finance East. It was the first when we were using escrow accounts. It was the suggestion even made by the European Union, because all countries globally are applying this approach, and the European Union offered us to also use this opportunity. So together with the Minister of Finance and the National Bank of Ukraine, we have introduced this model within Finance East, and then this mechanism also laid the groundwork for the 579 program. So we're using escrow accounts, not only 579. So now this is quite a convenient mechanism. And what Yuri Dragonchuk has mentioned about 31 bank, by the way, this also has happened thanks to our program, thanks to using innovative decisions, innovative solutions is much easier in terms of administering it on behalf of the banks. Because all the banks, especially the ones with the foreign capital, they are calculating all of the costs when they are accompanying a certain program. And this mechanism allows them to properly finance the compensation of interest rate for their clients, knowing that there are funds from the state that simply are not at the fund, that they are on their account in the bank. And it also gives quite substantial guarantee for success of the program. And I would like to talk a little bit about Finance East. It really was important for us because at the very beginning, it was our first step towards restoring the east of the country, and had no idea about what would be the demand from the SMEs and the investment. And I'm extremely glad that everything lived up to our expectations, probably even 150 or 200%. And we got 147 investment projects for micro, small, and middle enterprises to the total amount of 600 million hryvnia. I believe that this is a great result. And another thing that is especially pleasant for me, we're talking about investment costs. So these are not turnover funds. These are investment into modernizing agri-equipment, equipment in general. Because yes, in the portfolio we mainly have agriculture, but aside from that we also have production and processing, and another micro and small enterprises is what really matters. At the top left corner you can see 137 million for micro enterprises and 314 for the medium enterprises, the ones that need the most support from the state and from the European Union used it. So these are the main results within Finance East program. As I already mentioned, we had three institutions: Arshad Bank, ATP Leasing, and Ukrgaz Bank. All of them did a great job. And a very important result, in my opinion, is that prior to this project, ATP Leasing did not have any operations in that region at all. It was banned for them to have transactions in Donetsk and Luhansk Oblast from their head company. Thanks to the program, they entered the region. They have seen the real state of affairs in the region. And I recently was talking to the CEO, Andrei, and he told me that at the moment the risks of ATP Leasing allow to keep issuing loans, even though our project, it is not closed, but the funding is fully used. But the risks of the ATP Bank, ATP Leasing allow to further keep financing small and medium enterprises in the east of Ukraine. And this is the sustainability that Christian Hell was talking about. But I hope that the program will not be over. I hope that it will keep living, because the results are tangible, but we still see the potential, further potential, so that we can bring even more financial institutions to the region, because three that already are there. I know that Privat Bank is also actively engaged in that region, but we would like to at least have 10 active stakeholders in that region, so that thanks to the competition they can decrease the interest rates, because as we understand, the risks are quite high, and that they can provide better financial support to SMEs in the East. Now, I suggest we move on to another speaker from the day one. of the German-Ukrainian Fund, Business Development Fund. We have been working hand in hand with our partner KfW, starting in 1996, in fact. And this year, in 2021, we will be celebrating the 25th anniversary of German-Ukraine cooperation within Transform program, within creation and foundation of the Business Development Fund. KfW is an intermediary within all of our projects except for 579 program, except for Finance East. We also have credit programs. The resource for credit programs is used from our own funds, which, by the way, were also created with the participation of the KfW and the German government, as well as the money that was engaged by this bank. And now it is a pleasure to give the floor to the head of KfW representative. Unfortunately, due to the restrictions, he could not join us in person at the offline event. That is why he's gonna see us online.
Dear partners and guests, on behalf of KfW, it's my pleasure to congratulate the BDF to today's presentation of its annual report, of which we believe is an important milestone for the institution. And I would also like to utilize this opportunity to reflect on our joint achievements in our financial cooperation. Far back, nearly 25 years ago, the BDF was established by KfW on behalf of the German government, the National Bank of Ukraine, and the Ukraine government. This marked some kind of trailblazer, a milestone for SME financing here in this country. Back then, banks didn't possess the funds, not the experience, and also not technology on how to lend to SMEs. And so it was from the very beginning role of the BDF not only to provide funds to the partner banks, but also practices and experiences and how to lend to the sector and how to resolve its bottlenecks. This mission was supported by the German government from the very beginning, supported with a number of programs totaling in 35 million euros used to establishing the fund and used to enabling access to the sector. This package also includes a new program which we intend to launch soon, focusing on the promotion of energy-efficient technologies for small and medium enterprises. We believe that this support has been central to bring the BDF to the position where it is today. And we as KfW are happy and proud that we were able to contribute, bringing in our long-lasting experience in SME financing back in Germany, but also in many other countries in the world. We are also proud that the European Union has become a strong and important partner for the fund, and by that amplifying and diversifying the efforts of the German government and KfW. Since 2017, the European Union has been provided relevant and impactful support to the BDF via €5 million foreign currency hedge or a €9.5 million support program for SME in the Donbass. And seeing all this unfolding, KfW also gladly notes that the BDF is further broadening its institutional basis and that the Ukrainian government found ways to utilize the fund for its own promotional programs and activities. And by that also showing strong ownership in the efforts of the European Union and Germany. Having said that, KfW is looking forward to continuous cooperation with the BDF and its partner banks for the existing and future programs. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We'd like to thank our partner. And I would like to tell one more important thing, that over these 25 years of cooperation, the Business Development Fund, we were not only implementing credit programs and EU projects, but in the course of this period, we have learned to think and we have adopted the philosophy of the Germans, the European Union, and started to understand how the SMEs have to actually be supported. How do you implement this kind of programs? And it all later was reflected in our other programs such as 579, or also affordable mortgage 7% program. Except for the procedure, we have also learned how to operate, how to implement programs in accordance with the best European practice. And it is a pleasure that the European Union also notes that out, sees that, and I hope that they will also keep handing us over such important programs such finance is, because it is not simply impacting the economic restoration of the region. In my opinion, this is a program that is aimed at reinstating peace in the East and in country in general. Let us move on. And now we are gonna move to more details regarding 579 program. This program at the moment is the most well-known in Ukraine, I would say. It really assisted during the hard times of lockdown, quarantine restrictions to small and medium enterprises. We tried to refine it as much as possible so that it is relevant given the challenges. And now I'd like to give the floor to Executive Director of the fund, Andrei Gapon. Thank you so much, Valery. Welcome, colleagues. Welcome, guests. First, I would like to say, using this opportunity, thank you to the Minister of Finance for providing us with such a wonderful platform which allows us to report before the society, the banks, and our donors. Also, I would like to express the gratitude to the EU delegation, the German government, as well as KfW for fruitful cooperation and that you are always supporting our initiative. To kick off, well, Valery has already mentioned, and Yuri has also already mentioned, that fund is aimed at innovations, because last year we were the first in Ukraine to introduce the so-called guarantee mechanism, which helped small, micro and medium enterprises during Corona crisis. What are these credit guarantees by the fund? Let's put it that way. This is the allocation of the risks in case the small entrepreneur cannot pay for it. So we did everything possible so that even if there is a question about the higher risks of the economic operations, for the entrepreneur to be able to access the credit. From the very start, 4 banks started cooperating with us, which very rapidly got the grasp of this mechanism and have managed to allocate funds amounting to 641.5 million hryvnia. And our guarantee portfolio as of the end of last year was 441.3 million hryvnia. It is important to mention that the size of non-performing loans is 0%. So in fact, we only experience growth thanks to the guarantees, which amounted to 365,000 hryvnia, which also was aimed at expanding our guarantee fund. And we were using these guarantees, which allowed us to support numerous small and medium entrepreneurs who in other case would not have any access to credit funds. So now we are aware that starting the new year, another mechanism also appeared, which is called state portfolio guarantees. The partner here is Ukr-Exim Bank. And I hope that this mechanism will also assist us with the volumes of loans, because the amounts there are different. And I am aware that the whole mechanism of credit guarantees, this is the future of loans in Ukraine. May I add to that, as of today, these numbers that you see on the screen now, that is as of January 1, 2021. As of now, we have 1,200,000,000 of the portfolio of those entrepreneurs who used our guarantee. So this tool is extremely popular among the banks, among the entrepreneurs, and we will be further expanding it, using it within our other programs. Yes, because it performed as a very reliable tool, and probably it is yet too early to talk about 0%, etc. But in principle, if this is the only way for the entrepreneur to get a loan, why not? Next, I would like to focus on the main qualitative indicators regarding 579. Despite Corona crisis and all of the restrictions, we could see the growth of the credit portfolio, which is 17%, according to the NBU data and experts data. The interest rate in the national currency has decreased from 20.7% to 12.5%. So such dynamics, of course, also allowed to get external funding at a cheaper cost from international and other donors for the programs aimed at supporting small and medium enterprises. At the same time, the non-performing loans as of last year within our program is 0.62% only, which demonstrates that there is a high financial discipline, because if the borrower does not return the money, then they will not get the state support. So the program became the buffer that kept it from the increase in non-performing loans, which allowed to improve the situation of the banking system. And the reliable mechanism was introduced, which Valery has already mentioned. The so-called escrow accounts also helped the banks to think strategically when they are working with the budget funds. These escrow accounts allowed us to scale up the program. And if at the end of last year we had 23 authorized banks, now we have 31 authorized banks. And I'd like to remind you that this is not yet the end of our scale up, because this kind of scale up provides proper competition between the banks, which now turns from only competition in prices to competition in quality, because now any client can go to one of the authorized banks to get the loan issued for them. And in case in one of the banks for some reason they were refused, they always have the right to access other bank. Because now the main thing for the banks is improving their efficiency in terms of working with each client. Today we are reporting about the last year, but we haven't yet even once mentioned that thanks to 579 program's success this year, Business Development Fund also became the government's agent within other project that is called Affordable Mortgage, 7%. It is aimed at restoring the mortgages market in Ukraine and provide the opportunity to purchase affordable housing to our citizens, which is supposed to help the construction industry in Ukraine in general. Within this program, we were using all of our achievements. We based on the achievements from 579 program. Mechanism pretty much is the same as with the previous one. There are escrow accounts, and we hope that very soon we also will be proud of the results of this program. Summing it up, I would like to mention that true, 579 program succeeded. This program is the future, and I totally agree to what Valery has mentioned and what the Deputy Minister has mentioned. that crisis is almost over, and now we have to harmonize the program so that we can again look at the investment targets. The fund will keep working with this program, and I'm extremely grateful. I'd like to thank our authorized banks who also were working with this program at the local level, and express the gratitude to the government for their trust to us. Thank you, Andrei. I would like to also add that in our annual report, we're also providing the information about how the program impacted economic activities of entrepreneurs who participated in it. According to the information that we are gathering from the authorized banks on a weekly basis, all enterprises that participated in 579 program as of 2020, their overall annual income increased by 8%. And the tax increased by 19%. And the single social payment also increased 8%. This demonstrates that the state's investment into 579 program, and I'd like to remind you that in 2020, 2 billion were allocated for the program. 1.5 billion were aimed at increasing the authorized capital of the Business Development Fund to pay the guarantees, and 1.5 for the compensation, and 1.5 billion. Out of them, almost 500 million hryvnia were used specifically by the entrepreneurs for the compensation of the interest rate. And if we compare these figures, the investment of the state only 12 months later was almost half repaid by the tax that is paid by the entrepreneurs. And in my opinion, the main achievement of 579 program, which I believe has the mega national nature, because 17.6 thousand entrepreneurs have already used it, and the credit portfolio is close to 50 billion hryvnia. So the most valuable achievement of this program is that the state has strengthened and restored the confidence with the private sector, because during the hardest times, during the quarantine, the lockdown, when the entrepreneurs really were affected, especially micro and small enterprises, the state gave a hand of help, gave a helping hand to them. And I believe that the tax revenue and everything, this is, a kind of gradual mechanism, like a pendulum, the same as in the EU country, when all of the tax that is being paid by the entrepreneurs later come back to them in the shape of assistance. And in the end, the state increases its budget, its capacities for supporting and developing other areas and sectors. So I believe this is incredibly important thing. And I believe that this is the first time when we have such an achievement, such a result in Ukraine, which assists in confidence building between the state and the private sector. Now I'd like to tell a little bit about our credit programs, which are just as important for the fund. Because probably not everybody is aware, but the Business Development Fund is fully self-sufficient. We are funding ourselves. And to company 579 or affordable mortgage, we're not spending even 1 cent from the state budget. We are getting the money from our credit programs. So next slide, please. As of today, we have 4 credit programs. 2 using our own funds, which were back in the day created thanks to the National Bank of Ukraine, Minister of Finance, and German Development Bank, KfW. We are operating that money, and we keep increasing the amount thereof. I'm going to demonstrate on the next slides how the capital has increased over the 5-year period. And we have 2 more programs which we are implementing thanks to the loan by the German government via KfW. And the last program that was presented, supporting investment to the SMEs, we're also implementing it together with the European Union, which we have mentioned earlier. When the loan was provided that amounted to 10 million euro, it was in 2012. You remember that in 2013 and 2014 we had hyper devaluation, as a result of which nobody was interested in the financial resources, and we also didn't want to provide the currency resource to the banks and our entrepreneurs to not create risks for them. And then the European Union came to help EU for Business, which provided Ukraine with the no-return assistance to compensate for the losses of the Business Development Fund, which allowed us to provide a long-term 5-year resource back in the day with quite affordable interest rate of about 14%. Again, that was back in 2014 in the national currency. Back then, I clearly remember that there were also certain doubts in our partner banks whether there will be demand for the investment resource, because the crisis has just passed. Nobody really wanted to invest and to grow. But thanks to that program, we gave them a push, and the banks have realized that there is demand. And the volume of investment within the program started increasing and growing. Over 3 years, we have funded, you can see, the small and medium enterprises for more than 1 billion hryvnia. We have created new jobs, 2,375,000, and have preserved 6,243 jobs at SMEs. Now, 6 partner banks participate in the program. It is also incredibly popular because it's in hryvnia. It is long-term. And within this program, understanding that even 14% as of 2017 was quite a good interest rate, quite affordable. For investment, that was quite high, quite expensive for entrepreneurs, let me say. Then the fund decided to start cooperation with local governance, who also, thanks to the EU support, have started decentralization reform. And thanks to the decentralization reform, local governance, local authorities have received their own budgets. And they had no clue what do they do with it, how do they support entrepreneurs. So I'm extremely glad that we have managed to do that together with Kiev City administration, that we have managed to introduce this mechanism to include them into this program, and they will provide an additional compensation of the interest rate, half of the 14%, our interest rate. So the entrepreneurs in Kyiv back in 2017 already could implement investment project with 7% interest rate for a 5-year period. And this was also supported by other regions. We have signed cooperation agreements with about 10 regions, and we have launched properly operating programs with Ternopil region, cities from Kyiv Oblast, such as Byla Tserkva. And this model of the program, together with our German and European colleagues, laid the groundwork for 579%. That 7% became the foundation of 579 program. And now I believe we have quite good tangible results. Next slide, please. Now, I'd like to also say a couple of words about the program itself, about its assets increasing and growing. We have started in 2017 with 10 million euro, and only 3 years later, the assets of the program has increased by 66%. So I believe that this is the best proof of the results, especially given that over this time we have not used even a single euro cent from this assistance that was provided to us by the European Union. So our program, our hedging model, which was also developed together with our partners from KfW, was developed in such a way that it was adapting to the currency market. So when there was a decrease, a drop or revaluation of the national currency, this hedge instrument is not needed. So we were not using it then. But at the same time, as I have already mentioned, we have created over 2,000 jobs. We have increased the assets of our program by 66%. Hence, we have created additional buffer for possible future currency shake-ups. Well, I hope that they are not going to happen anymore in the history of Ukraine. But even shall those happen, the buffer that was created within 3 years is sufficient to keep funding small and medium enterprises in Ukraine in the national currency using the funds provided by our international partners. And we keep in touch with the EU delegation. Our model was accepted by the European Union, and the European Union is ready to broaden the funding for this model, to expand it. Next, I'd like to mention that similar model will be used in our future programs. Next slide, please, now. These are our main financial indicators. I have already mentioned our fund is financially independent. We're not using the money from the budget. We are self-sufficient. As you can see, over the last years, we see the constant growth of the interest income. We see the growth of the income, and starting 2015, the capital of the fund, aside from the share that was given to us to compensate the guarantees, has increased 208%. So we have earned 18 million thanks to having support from our partners. That is why we were courageously doing credits, giving loans, supporting business. Business was making money, and the Business Development Fund was also making money, expanding opportunities for further funding of SMEs in Ukraine. In 2020, the government and the Ministry of Finance increased our capital to pay guarantees, 500 million, as Andrei has already mentioned. Thankfully, we haven't used even 1 cent from that over a year. We have increased it by 400,000 thanks to the fees for guarantees being issued. So we are demonstrating quite good results, sustainable results of our work. Next slide now, please. And I would like to talk about our plans for the future. As it was already mentioned by Deputy Minister, this year, well, even last year in 2020, in December, the Minister of Finance signed a general agreement with the government of Ukraine, according to which a large number of projects and programs will be implemented. One of them will be the new project aimed at supporting energy efficiency in small and medium enterprises in Ukraine. It will be implemented in cooperation with the European Union, thanks to hedging. The resources will be provided for a long term, for 5-year period. We have increased the amount of the loan. Before, the maximum amount was equivalent of 250,000 euro. Now it is 500,000, because we understand that energy efficient projects require more investment. That is why the amount will be higher respectively. And the most important thing is that all our programs of the BDF, I mean credit and loan programs, can be combined with 579 program. So I think this is a very cool synergy. By the way, again, in our annual report, we have presented success stories of specific entrepreneurs for whom our authorized banks were combining various programs. For example, they took investment support program, combined it with 579 program, and there is a very nice example of dentistry by Alexuk. This is a project, if I'm not mistaken, by Lviv Bank, and within that project, the enterprise has received a loan back in 2019 at 14% interest rate, when 579 program was not there. When it was introduced, this enterprise has combined it with this program, and then the interest rate has decreased to 7%. But as it also provides you with additional discount if new jobs are created. They have created new jobs and their interest rate fell down to 5% only. So during the crisis, the enterprise had quite affordable resource to further finance their activities. I believe that this is one of the best examples that demonstrates efficiency of 579 program and Business Development Fund's programs. Also last year, Business Development Fund was closely collaborating with the Japanese International Cooperation Agency, JICA. In 2018, we even visited Tokyo. We met with the Vice President of JICA in their headquarters, and then JICA supported our idea about founding similar program aimed at supporting investment projects for SMEs in Ukraine. In 2020, the Japan agency has also engaged the Japanese Institute of Economic Research to study the feasibility of investment to Ukraine and possibility of cooperation with the Business Development Fund. So they assessed our procedures, how transparent they are, how efficient they are, how compliant they are to the best European practice. As a result of such an evaluation, a report was prepared, which this year was approved by the leadership of JICA, and the board made a decision about launching the program and start of fruitful cooperation aimed at supporting SMEs in Ukraine. Because you probably are aware that JICA is mainly focusing on Far East, and this will be the first project aimed at supporting small and medium enterprises in Eastern Europe. It is a pleasure for us. And we hope that if not this year, then next year, 2022, we will be able to together introduce and implement the project. We previously have discussed it with European Union, and the EU is also ready to join it using the hedging model so that we can also provide affordable resource in Ukrainian hryvnia. Because as of today, the banking system does have the resource. There is liquidity, but this is a short-term liquidity. JICA, our German partners, the EU, are providing Ukraine with long-term liquidity. For example, JICA's loan is up to 30 years. German partners, according to the new program, is 4 years. The EU support is 10 years, which would allow us within the energy efficiency projects to provide our business with the resource for 7 to 10 years, because we understand that we need some time for projects like that to start performing. And our German partners do not simply provide us with the credit resource so that we can give it to the banks or entrepreneurs. They always accompany it with technical assistance so that banks can develop, so that businesses can grow, so that they are trained how to efficiently work with our programs. And talking about energy efficiency, we will not be simply issuing loans, but we will be also training small, medium, and micro entrepreneurs how to save costs on using electricity, energy, even at micro and small enterprises. Because, you know, many people think that only large enterprises are interested in energy efficiency. That's not true. The Europeans prove that wrong, that even micro and small enterprises have the potential to become energy efficient. And this is what we will be demonstrating with that project. We will also be training the banks how to properly operate and work with energy efficiency projects. And now, I'm glad to also welcome the Minister of Finance, Mr. Marchenko. And over to you, Minister. I am sorry for being late. Sometimes there are things that you cannot postpone. I was really preparing for this event, and I'm extremely glad to be here because I believe that what was done starting in 1996 with the support of the German government, with the support of the EU, now already demonstrates as the fruit of all the effort. As far as I understand, the volume of all of the credit resources amounts to about 48 billion hryvnia. Yes, this is quite a powerful amount of money to support small and medium enterprises. This is very important during the pandemic and crisis because this is the time when business specifically needs support. And as you're aware, the government also joins this. And last year, with the President's support, 579 program was established, which was also aimed at providing liquidity for the business, creating conditions for credits for investment projects, and the volume of funding is also quite large. As of today, it is up to 20 billion, even more. Because I was first given some, because we're now presenting the report, 46, the credit portfolio, 46 billion hryvnia. Well, so we could say that 579 program is the main driver of credits in Ukraine. I don't know what is the destiny of the loans issued, what is the share of the new loans, but I believe that if last year it was quite large, and I believe that this year the same, 20%. This is quite sufficient. This truly proves the results of the work. I always keep asking the representatives of the banking system because we cannot substitute the banking system with the business development fund, but even despite hard times, this program fulfills and performs and plays a very important role. Now it will be also expanded. We are going to provide mortgages. Also, you know that we already have started providing mortgages with the help of this program. And the main thing that I'd like to mention, because I can keep talking forever about the achievements, and I believe that you have already discussed it, you've been here for a while, so I can only second it, that those goals that were set by the German government, by the EU in 1996 are now implemented, which demonstrates that constant, persistent support of systemic projects sooner or later will bring you sufficient results. And now we see that all. It's tangible. Because focus on small and medium enterprises, small business, is a priority. And I believe that this format of business should be supported by the state and our donors. This is it from me. Thank you so much. Thank you for your daily support. Thank you for choosing us. Thank you for your confidence. Colleagues, thank you so much. We are ready to wind up the presentation of our annual report. I would like to say that today we have established a very nice tradition. Business Development Fund will annually present its results, because it is important to not only talk about how the money was used, but talk about tangible results, how it impacted development of businesses, development of banking system, and development of the economic system in general. That is why, see you next year. I'd like to thank all speakers, Minister, and let's take a group picture now.
Ні, можна так, давайте. Я перепрошую.
I'm sorry, we also have questions, actually. I'm sorry, I was in a bit of a hurry. Hello, my name is Bogdan Slutsky. I'm a journalist from Union. My question is not exactly regarding the topic. I have a question to Serhiy Marchenko. On May 31st, we're paying for the GDP, the guarantees. It was 3.6 billion was taken off the account, and now we have to pay the part of our GDP to pay for it. So now it's 41 million. In the coming years, it's going to be more, because according to the budget declaration that was adopted, next year it's going to be 3.8, then it's going to be 4.7, then 5. So if we calculate the total amount, we will pay for these 3 years over $1.5 billion US dollars. If we calculate it till 2040, it's going to be over 12 billion. So could you please tell, what do you think about this restructurization? And you, as the Minister of Finance, do you deem it efficient or not? And what is the plan of the Minister of Finance regarding how you will be working with this tool? You have already purchased almost 11%, and what are you planning to do next with this tool? Because that will be a burden for the economic development. Thank you. I'll try to answer your question swiftly. You know, I don't want to give evaluations to the situation of 2015, decisions that were made in 2015, and why this agreement was structured in that way about restructuring. Because to be objective fully, you have to be a part of those who participated in working on them. I have nothing to do with those agreements. Yeah, you have properly mentioned there are consequences that now we have to pay for the warrants, and yes, we did partially buy them. The Minister of Finance has the right to fulfill active operations. When, how, in what way, we will define depending on the situation in the market. Talking about the prospects, well, we'll see. This is quite a complex situation, which requires everybody to be involved, because if we see the forecasted growth, the amount that has to be paid back is quite large. So there are several paths that we may take, but as they say, they are confidential and we cannot talk about them publicly. Thank you. Are there any more questions? But regarding the topic of our today's meeting, if not, then I suggest we go back to the group picture.